An adjunct senior fellow at the Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Good day to you, James. Your initial thoughts?
None. Always a pleasure to be with you. I think it's wait and see. We're still trying to figure out what exactly happened, who did what to whom. The real question, I don't think there's much doubt that what happened was an Israeli strike. The question is whether how successful that strike was and to what degree the Iranians see this as an escalation. The initial impression is, but it's only an impression, is that the Iranians are downplaying this. Let's keep in mind that the Iranians have made very clear that their attack on Israel last Saturday, the barrage of drones and missiles, was, as far as they were concerned, the end of the story. They had no plans to further attack Israel and did not want this to escalate, but warned, of course, that if Israel strikes back, then there would be a response.
Yeah, I mean, just picking up on that kind of train of thought there, James, do you feel almost as if it's been carefully choreographed from both sides? I mean, some of those Iranian drones were flying for more than 2 hours. So clearly, Israel and its allies had time to shoot them down. And now we've got what we believe is the start or maybe the end of, excuse me, some sort of Israeli response. But if the damage and the reports from Iran are credible, there's been so little effect of this attack that the two sides may just kind of, without being in communication, come to some sort of agreement that, okay, we leave it at this for now.
There's obviously a risk that this would escalate, but there's also an opportunity to de-escalate. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The point here really is that what the Israelis did with the attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus was to push the envelope and see how far they could go. The Iranians responded. Now, whether or not the response was calibrated not to cause damage or loss of life in Israel is an open question. It's clearly that the Iranians were trying to signal in advance, and therefore one can argue that they did not want their massive barrage to be extremely damaging. Having said that, they took, of course, a risk. They took a risk and were betting on the Israeli air defenses to be able to take their missiles and drones down. So now it's going to be up to Iran to decide how it projects what happened in Isfahan and perhaps in other Iranian cities and in southern Syria, whether or not they downplay this or they think that this is a further escalation to which they have to respond.
How much more urgent does this make a resolution to what's happening in Gaza? Because if there is to be some kind of resolution there, it removes the excuse that Iran may have for carrying out the activities that it has been doing, obviously in support of Gazans.
Gaza and Iran are on the one hand linked. One of the things that the Iranians said prior to their attack last Saturday was that if there is a ceasefire in Gaza, then there would be no need to respond to the Israeli attack on the consulate in Damascus. But on the other hand, the Iranian issue is a separate issue. That is to say, Israel and Iran have been engaged in a shadow war for decades, and Israel has been targeting Iranian assets, particularly in Syria, and for that matter, nuclear assets, including nuclear scientists in Iran for many years. And so that was something that was going on for a long time, in which the Iranians, in a sense, connected to Gaza by saying, if there's a ceasefire, we don't need to attack Israel.
Do you think it's possible for the Israeli government and the Israeli military to resist the calls of the extreme right, who appear to be looking for some kind of excuse to attack maybe even Iran's nuclear facilities? Because at this moment in history, there are people in Israel who believe that the moment can be taken advantage of.
That's certainly true, but it's not clear to me that the far right in Israel speaks with one voice. You had earlier this week a situation in which one of the cabinet members, a member of the government of Netanyahu, who is an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, who advised Netanyahu that any strike against Israel should be postponed until after the Passover holiday that starts next week, Monday. That report presumably was deliberately leaked so that Netanyahu would cover, but what it would have cover if he decided not to strike. But what that report means is that there is also a divided opinion within the far right of Israel.
James, as always, thank you so much indeed. Really appreciate the analysis.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.